Hey, everybody. Welcome to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT. We're based here in Portland, but we've got stations across the country, and we are on the Golf Newsnet iHeart channel there. We thank our good buddy Ryan Ballingy for that. This segment of Grilling at the Green is brought to you by Painted Hills Natural Beef, beef the way nature intended, and also the Oregon Crab Commission. From sea to plate, Oregon Dungeness crab is a real treat. If you've never had it, try it. Well, I'm really pleased today. Long time no see. to That's an inside joke. Maybe we'll tell you later. Have Bob Winskowicz with us, the CEO and founder of Squares Golf Shoe. I don't know if we'll stop laughing through this whole thing, Bob, but anyway, welcome back to the show.
It is a pleasure. It's always good to talk to you.
God. We will tell them by the end of the show, but right. Anyway, like this. So you were on a year or two ago. You were just kind of picking up a head of steam with Squares. How's that going? And how's it? What directions are you going in now? And give us an overview, please.
Yeah, we've come a long way, Jeff, in the last couple of years. You know, it was a very difficult thing to break into the golf industry, particularly in footwear, with a design that really breaks the mold of tradition. And what I mean by that is a rounded toe shoe. Squares, what we did is we looked at science, but we had this premise that if we can improve somebody's balance and stability, you will hit the ball farther and straighter. And as we started to look at that in footwear, what happened is that all the science led us down the path of opening up the toe box, and it's very popular now with sneaker brands like Hoka and Ultra. And really, what we learned that as you put pressure on the ground, your toes need and want to splay, which is open up. Mm-hmm. And if they can't, if you're in a rounded toe shoe, what happens is they round under. And when you angle the toes to the center of the shoe, you start moving in your big toe, which is about 40% of the weight bearing in your foot, and you start losing balance. And so the science told us that if we can open up the toe box, we're not making a wide shoe, it's a normal width shoe, just opening up where the toes can sit, you will improve somebody's balance and stability. But then what we're able to do is just on the outsole, is widen the outsole just a little under the ball of your foot. So now you have even more balance and stability. So that was our whole premise. And that led us to a geometry on the front of the shoe. And that geometry is something where it's less rounded than most. Mm-hmm. But it's not square. It's got a 70 millimeter radius.
Sure.
And so with that, it allows the toes to sit naturally. But to tell that story, I am not going to put myself in the same bracket as Ely Callaway or Karsten Solheim. But if you recall, when the Big Bertha came out, it looked like an oversized snow shovel with no hosel. Right. And people said, "What the heck is that?" And what happened was he was after perimeter weighting. And when he got done, that's the way perimeter weighting looked. And that's what we did. It's how do I improve your balance and stability? And this is where the science led us. And so the look of the shoe is different, but the performance attributes are far different too.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me. I told you off the air that I came out of the horse world. When you are this might not make sense to people, and don't run away just from my analogy here, but when you're shoeing horses and you're trying to get them level, a lot of times you have to spread it out a little bit. Okay. The wider the base for the horse, there's a couple things that happens there. A horse's blood pumps from its movement of its feet when it hits the ground and goes back up. That's the circulation aspect of it. All right. The science there, but also, they got into a trend 30 years ago and stuff where they wanted these horses to have little tiny feet, just, symmetrical. So they have these big bodied horses on these little tiny feet. Well, they had a lot of breakdowns. They had a lot of horses that couldn't perform. They went back to a normal size foot, spread the foot out a little bit, There was length of the foot. There were certain parameters they had to stay within the length limits, but the width limits, there weren't really any parameters on that. When they went back to that, the horses started performing better. And I know
Interesting.
as a guy that's above 55, that when I can spread my feet out a little bit, and like you were talking with the toes, I have much better balance. I can't do the toes curled under thing. It just doesn't work for me.
It doesn't work really for most people. We've made, footwear making over the years, we've kind of made it work in our everyday life, but we do know that we're the most comfortable when we put sandals on or when we open up, the toe box.
Mm-hmm.
Our foots can operate, function properly. And I don't think I've ever heard somebody wear a pair of sandals, open toe sandals around, and then at the end of the day say, I can't wait to get them off,
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the extreme, but it gives you that point of reference that if the feet can operate properly, instead of angling them to center at the end of the round, you're going to feel a heck of a lot less fatigue.
Well, and it makes sense too, Bob, from the science aspect of it and the motion of the swing, what have you. When your feet are balanced and steady and you can shift your weight, bring it back through, and do all those good things we always talk about in the world of golf, versus that curled effect, I think you're just going to hit the ball better.
Oh, no question, because it's something that it's something that is proven with science that your arms follow your body. So if you're too much forward, too back, too left, too right, nothing good is going to consistently happen. And I was watching something the other day on the internet, somebody selling a club that supposedly fixes your slice, and it's because it's got a closed face. I see something like that, and I say it's like trying to fix a rattle in your car by turning up your radio. And it's something that if you are not balanced and stable, you will never really optimize, the pressure that you exert in the ground and utilizing all of that. Because one of the differences in a pro and an amateur is that we can all create that pressure with the ground. But how much of that pressure that you create do you ultimately use when you hit the golf ball?
Right.
And that really is a function of postural control, your control of your body. Because if you're leaning too far left, right, and you're moving around, you're losing energy. You're creating inefficient. You'll never use that. But that's what the pros do. They can create it and always use it. And we can create it, but we just start reducing it from the time that downswing happens. So, if I can improve your balance and stability, you will hit it farther and straighter.
So there's hope.
There is. And again, footwear, we've seen in footwear making over the last 4 or 5 years, have been one of my motivations of getting into this business. When I see these lightweight sneaker-like shoes with no cleats on the bottom of them, golfers have no understanding that this is creating so many inefficiencies in their golf swing.
Right.
If you can hold a shoe by the heel and the toe and twist it, don't play golf in it. And the reason is because it's got so much play and you're creating so much pressure with the ground, it's going to create these imbalances during your swing that you can't recover from.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back on Grilling at the Green with Bob Winskowicz from Squares Golf Shoes. And we're going to get a travel tip from Bob when we come back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. We'd like to thank you for listening today on whatever platform or radio station you are doing that on. If you want to reach out to us, really simple. You can go to our Facebook page, or we have a Twitter/X page. We are on Instagram, all that stuff. You can just reach out to us that way, or you can go to the website and there's a little contact us page like most of them have right there. So you can do that. We're talking with Bob Winskowicz, from the CEO and founder of Squares Golf. Now, Bob, this is where we get a travel tip from our guests. We have a lot of people, it's a lot more available for people these days to to get around I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast. I can be there in 5 hours and we can go play golf. So what's a good travel tip that you've developed over the years?
My travel tip is to, book the flight. Obviously, you book the flight as far in advance as you possibly can, and don't necessarily worry about your seat selection, all that, because when you get to the airport and you get up to the gate, they always hold back X amount of seats. And it seems like if I go up and you're nice to the person that is behind the counter, and you say, look, I'm in this seat. I've been moved up into those extra room seats at no additional cost, just because somebody said, hey, it's available. Nobody's sitting there, and I'd like to be nice to somebody today. So I guess the travel tip is ultimately be nice to the people behind the gate, and then make a special request. I don't think they're going to move you to first class, but
Yeah,
they
they'll
most
move you up.
likely can help you.
Yeah, they'll move you up. Another travel tip from Jeff here. It doesn't hurt when your sister-in-law works for the airlines in the in the customer service lounge. So I just want to share that with you. Anyway, we want to thank the folks at Weston Kia, Northwest's largest Kia dealer out in Gresham, Oregon. We appreciate their support of this. When you started Squares, I mean, you named a couple of them, but you've got FootJoy, you've got Callaway, you've got a lot of Nike. My God, the behemoths out there. What did they look at you like? You had three heads or something when you started Squares, or was it more like, oh, it's just a little startup and whatever?
I'm sure it was a combination of both, because it's when you break into the market with something that looks different, some people react to that change as something that's not so good. But you see products that evolve over the years, and when change takes place, sometimes the form factor has to change as well. And so I think it was kind of a wait and see from these guys. Surely startups are, they're viewed in the golf industry as, we'll see, we'll wait and see after a couple of years if they're still around. But, I think many people would agree with me. Innovation today, I don't think comes from a lot of these big companies, these massive corporations like Adidas and FootJoy and Nike. I think innovation comes from the people like myself and other people, that entrepreneurs that see an opportunity and accept the risk, and kind of put blinders on, in a sense, and say, look, I may be against the biggest guy in the school here in a fight, but you know what? My father used to say is hit him first and hit him as hard as you can, and who knows,
Right.
And you never know. It's like any given Sunday, but we went out there on a mission and stayed with a performance story where others, really weren't talking performance, Jeff. They were talking, new upper materials and new colorways and things like that. And we were being very specific, saying, if you change these shoes, all the testing says you'll pick up 2.9 miles per hour in swing speed, which is over 10 yards, which is right around 10 yards of distance. So, we had a different message, but I think they did look at us like, a piece of lint on their shirt, and, nothing that was disruptive. And here we are 4 years later.
I'm looking at the shoes behind you. I'm looking at the spike pattern, if you will, and then the the permanent spikes, and I don't even know what you call those little things that
We call them traction knobs.
traction knobs. Okay. Your designs in that, I'm sure you just didn't throw them in there and say, well, that looks cool, let's do that. There had to be some testing and science behind those too.
Absolutely. You with the invent many years ago of pressure mats and all the software today, and cameras, and you can excuse me, you watch how the foot moves through the swing. Many people are either some are a lateral golfer, some are a rotational, and some are a combination of both. But no matter what, to finish the swing, you've got to get that right hip through, and you've got to rotate your foot up onto the toe. Well, you can't have, if you were to cement your 2 feet down, it'd probably break your ankles. You've got to have some rotational movement. So if you look at the bottom of our shoes,
There you are.
it's got a rotational pattern and also removable cleats. But all of the nubs on the shoe are at differing heights because you need different traction in different areas. Now, where we place these cleats, that's where the greatest amount of pressure is exerted on the bottom of the feet. So those removable cleats work in conjunction with those nubs. But an interesting fact for people to really understand and digest for a minute is the fact that 82% of all tour players wear a shoe that has a removable cleat. Of those people, about 30%, I understand, still wear a metal cleat, which we as amateurs can't do it. But why do they do it? For traction, for connection, from connection to the ground, so they can generate that pressure on all different lies, whether it's a side hill, downhill, or wherever it may be. You need that traction and that connection to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, I played golf Wednesday and I slipped. Of course, Massachusetts isn't that much different than Oregon, but you guys get a little more snow and inclement weather than we do, precipitation wise. Point being is I went to hit a ball and I have my regular, I won't name the brand, but they're golf shoes and they've got cleats in them and stuff, but I slipped. I didn't fall down, but I just slipped, my foot kind of went out from under me because the grass was wet and I was on a little downhill incline, not much. And I thought, that's not good. That's really not good. Anyway, we're going to pick this up on the other side. We're talking with Bob Winskowicz from Squares Golf Shoes. I'm soon to be a proud owner of a pair of Squares golf shoes. I'm very excited about that. Anyway, Bob and I will be back right here on Grilling at the Green in just a minute. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT, and today we're talking with Bob Winskowicz from Squares Golf Shoes. He's the CEO and the guy that the light bulb went on to make this happen. We'd like to thank the folks again at Painted Hills Natural Beef. Beef the way nature intended. Also, Grilla Grills. My other show, my barbecue show, I work with Grilla Grills on that. They make some great outdoor kitchen stuff. I happen to have most of one here, and whether it's gas pellet or charcoal. So go to grillagrills.com. When you're up against the big behemoths, and we talked about that, quite a bit in the last segment, Bob, but when you're doing that, did any of them ever come up to you, doesn't matter who it was, and after you got established, say, Bob, that's a pretty good idea. That's pretty smart.
Not really, but no, the answer is no. However, I did speak with a very well-known footwear designer that is a consultant for one of the large companies. And we had a conversation, I'm going to say maybe 2 years ago. And he said that, you have nailed it relative to the design. And he had mentioned to me the 3 most important pieces of golf footwear design, in his opinion, and, which are scientifically true, which is, the traction pattern, building out a wider base, and allowing room in the toe box. And it was one of those things where everybody was trying to increase the width of the toe box by just making the shoe more wide. And it started, people knew the design limitations because it'd end up looking like a clown shoe, if you kept a rounded toe shoe, and then, some of the ways they tried to expand the base under the ball of your foot was by, like on the FootJoy Pro SLs, adding these pods that kind of hung over the outsole. But he confirmed that. And the fourth thing he said, which I found to be very interesting, he said a lacing technology, because you need to bring the upper material down on your foot and you needed to lock it in
Yes.
without having it loosen up, because if it does, it will loosen until it comes untied. But from that point that you tie it the first time till it comes untied, all that in between, there's inefficiencies of your foot moving around, which is not only causing fatigue, but is causing some inefficiencies in your golf swing. So he was very complimentary about how he addressed all the components that he felt to be the more important thing. So, but since then, I've not had, I think we're probably looked at as a competitor that,
Sure.
that not too many people are going to come out and openly and publicly say, hey, you got a great design.
But actually, it's better to be looked at as a competitor than, like you said before, a piece of lint on their shirt.
Yes,
I
yes,
would
yes.
think, yeah.
Yeah, and last year we were named the most scientifically advanced golf shoe by Sports Illustrated. We've been named the most stable golf shoe 2 years in a row by My Golf Spy. We were, since we launched 4 years ago, we've been named on the best of the best, golf shoes by Golf Digest. So, we're we're out there and we're making impact on people's games, and people have taken notice.
So, you've got a very prominent person. You've got some players on tour that are wearing your shoes. Excuse me, Bob. But also you've got Sir Nick working with you guys. Um, Share with us. I mean, we've seen the ads and the print ads and the TV ads and stuff, but when he first put on a pair of squares, and you were probably somewhere in the vicinity and when he did that, what was his reaction?
Actually, it's quite an interesting story, and I'll make it very brief. Is that one day back, I think it was May, I should know the exact date, but May of 2020, I got a call from a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Eisenberg, who was Sir Nick Faldo's agent at the time, and said, hey, I'm Sir Nick Faldo's agent, and Sir Nick would like to get a couple pairs of shoes to try. And I'm like on the other end of the phone, all right, who is this? I thought it was a friend of mine breaking my chops. And we sent him a couple of pairs, and we set up a Zoom call about 30 days later. And I was honored to be on that call, a little starstruck. And he's telling me the story, and he leaned back in his chair and he said, I never would have believed it, but I feel more balanced, more stable, and I've picked up 2.6 miles an hour in my swing speed. So it rolled out like that. And he said, how do I get involved? And in that story, he's told that exact story. And, it was very interesting. And I was so proud of that, but it was kind of a confirmation, affirmation of what we've accomplished, because, Sir Nick in his career was one of those very unique players that changed his swing halfway through his career. And,
Right.
he would practice. He was known as somebody who was very methodical, and, he kept to himself in the practice range, dedicated a lot of time and effort to getting better and winning tournaments. And he was very critical of everything, the equipment, his swing. And, he applied that same kind of criticism to our shoes, and focused and came back and he said, geez, I love these things. Great. How do I get involved? And I was honored.
Oh, cool. And he is involved now. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm not, I talked to him 2 days ago. He's very involved. And I don't think there's a call I have with him where he says, hey, what else can I be doing? How can I help? He believes in this. He's out there on his Facebook, his Twitter, promoting this. He's in the commercials. And, the fun part about commercials with him is we just talk to him about what we're hoping to accomplish in the commercials. And then we kind of wind him up and he goes, and he knows what to say, because, his knowledge of the golf swing, knowledge of our product and what it delivers, it's a very easy thing for him to do.
That's what you just said there, Bob. That's one of the best directors in Hollywood does it that way. Names happen to be Clint Eastwood, but that's the way he directs a picture. He comes and talks to Bob. He talks to Jeff. This is what we want. You good with that? Okay. All right, let's go. Boom. And it goes just like that.
And I had the pleasure back in the day of working for Arnold Palmer. And, he was exactly the same way. He would be, just tell me what we're trying to accomplish here. Tell me. He'd sit there, he'd look around for a second. He'd go on camera and he can make you cry.
Yeah.
He was the best at it. He was great.
What do you think Mr. Palmer would have thought of these shoes? Would he have given them a shot?
I am 100% sure he would. And I'll tell you another quick story is when I worked for him, I was the senior VP of sales and marketing. And at one of the meetings, we were presenting to him a new iron. And I got halfway through my pitch and he stops and he says, Bob, excuse me. He goes, he said, what's in it for the golfer? And I'm sure I was taking off my game. And I said, Mr. Palmer, what'd you say? He said, what's in it for the golfer? And, at the time we were worried about how good it looked and, shaft colors and this and that and this and that. And, finally I got myself back on. I said, well, it's going to do this and do this and do that. But I never forgot that. And he was all about how the product could help the golfer play better. And he always believed that if we can help somebody play the game better, they'll enjoy it more and they'll keep coming back. And, people, I had a good biomechanic tell me once, he said, when you put any product on your body, it becomes part of your performance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Mr. Palmer would have loved these. I think he would have been supporting these because, again, we have all of these scientific studies and to prove that it does improve your balance and stability, and therefore you are hitting the ball farther and straighter.
Well, the other thing, and I think you nailed it before, Bob, was they don't look like clown shoes. They look like really cool shoes to me. From a guy who spent a lot of his life in cowboy boots, if you will, and we had the selection of the A toe, the J toe, the U toe. I don't know. There was a C toe too. I think there was about 7 of them that you could choose from the real pointy ones, which God help you if you had to wear those, to more of a U toe, which is what they would call a Wellington boot, like that. Those were the most comfortable because they were wider. And then later on, the square toes came back out and kind of like your squares golf shoes. And those worked out too. But, I think sometimes people forget how important their feet are, not just in the golf game, but just in everyday life.
I couldn't agree more. And it's so evident in golf.
Yeah.
It's,
because they, like you said, they buy a lot of these crappy $29, molded soles. There's nothing wrong with molded soles, but there's no support in them. They're nothing. They're just hard and they got a cute flower on them or something, I don't know.
And I always challenge people. I say, what's the most important piece of golf equipment? Is it the shoe? Is it the club or the ball? And I lay them down on the ground. I said, which one of these helps you generate swing speed?
Right.
And a club is like the lightning rod. And the ball just sits there and it takes the energy that you create with the ground, and your only connection to the ground is your shoe. And I watch people go spend $700-800 on a driver and $49 or $59 on a pair of shoes. And I say, why not invest in a good pair of good golf shoes that can render that driver impotent?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that people place too much emphasis on the driver. And I can take, if I was to fit you for, shaft flex, grip size, length of the club, and lie angle, once I get that right, I can put any club in your hand and you'll be within 3 or 4 or 5 yards. And all the studies are out there. So, to spend $800 on a driver, that's great that you use 7, 8, 10, 12 times around. But when you golf shoes, if you're not balanced and stable and you're walking the course, you need a good solid piece of equipment on your feet.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, wrap up the regular portion of Grilling at the Green, and then Bob's going to stick around for after hours. But you're listening to Grilling at the Green on, guess what? The Golf News Net iHeartRadio network. We'll be right back. When you got radio stations and then you got podcasts, because there's a few of us that have radio stations, but most people have podcasts, but we do both, and I can't really like on my barbecue show, I can say, well, that's part of the USA radio networks, but I can't say that about this show because we've never tried to syndicate it. We've just had stations call us and say, hey, we run your barbecue show. You talk about the golf show, we'd like to run it. So that's why sounds kind of, I don't know, wonky, maybe. Hell, I don't know. Here we go. Hey, welcome back to Grilling at the Green. We've got Bob Winskowicz with us today. Robert, I should say, is his proper name, but we call him Bob around here. CEO, founder of Squares Golf Shoes, and Bob is going to stick around for after hours. What's been I don't want to put anything in a negative light, but what's been the biggest criticism that you've had to endure with Squares so far? I don't see any that's valid, but there's always somebody.
Yeah, when we launched, our shoes were right in the high 17s in terms of the weight of the shoe, 17 ounces. And at the time, the industry was going completely the other way, when FootJoy and the Dry Joys, and you had all the performance shoes, like even their Premiers today and their their Traditions, and all of these shoes are in the 17-ounce range. And same with most of the performance-based golf shoes. We were a little heavier by just maybe 25 grams, but not much. And we had a lot of comments about the weight of the shoe. We had some times where people talked about the breathability of the shoe, but this was stuff that was good stuff for us because we worked hard on correcting it. Like our new shoe is almost 2 ounces lighter. Every one of our shoes now that we're making has got a microfiber upper, and microfiber is lighter than the synthetic leather we were using before. And it is also very breathable, and it allows the heat and the perspiration to exit the shoe without water coming in. It's 100% waterproof. So the criticisms were actually things that were valid, that we addressed. There's been people that said, look, I don't like the geometry of the shoe, and that's their personal preference. We don't try to sell anybody off of that.
Sure.
We just say, look, this is the reason why we did it. But other than that, that's really been the essence of what we've heard in terms of negative aspects of the shoe.
Do you think you'll ever get into a dress shoe aspect going down the road?
It's interesting and actually kind of funny that you brought that up. Is that I don't think we'd ever go outside of the sports industry and create something typical footwear. But we are looking at new models where we're going to launch in the fall that are more traditional looking in the sense that they've got some traditional looks to them, the old leather type looks to them. And I think we've found a way to incorporate that kind of traditional look with our design that really makes it look very, very fashionable and high end.
Kind of and I'm not saying this would be it, but excuse me, kind of the old wingtip look in a way, the more formal, if you will.
Yeah, more classic, more traditional look. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious. I mean, I'm the tennis shoe look guy anymore. I don't go anywhere where I'm very formal. I don't have to, but yeah, I can do that. Where do you think you'll be, 5 years? Do you think you'll be in the big chain stores, or do you like what the business model you're using now?
We will be in the chain stores. We in November, we were a direct to consumer company initially, and then this November we went into Worldwide Golf Shops, which is Roger Dunn and Edwin Watts, and they've got I think 5 or 6 brands under that umbrella. We've just created an online relationship with Golf Town up in Canada and PGA Tour stores, and we're having conversations with other larger retailers that are out there as well. But I see us, with golf growing in that direction. But we've recently launched a baseball shoe that is doing quite well We've launched a pickleball shoe that has been in test market for about a year and a half. And so we're going to leverage this whole balance and stability mindset into other land-based sports, because whether it's baseball or pickleball, you've got to use the ground.
Right.
And you need to be balanced and stable to effectuate the motion. And so the technology and the design is leverageable across other markets and other sports.
One last question in this part of the show, because we're running out of time, Bob. You ever think of just a walking shoe?
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to say any more than that, but that's a good thing. All right. Bob Winskowicz from Squares Golf Shoes, CEO and founder. Thank you. And you're going to stick around, suffer the other abuse, but we want to thank Bob for being with us today. And we will be back next week with another edition of Grilling at the Green. Oh, real quick. I'm sorry, Bob. Where can they find you? Give us a website or a URL there.
Squares.com, and that's SQAIRZ, SQAIRZ.com.
Oh, cool. I'm sorry about being so late with that, but
no worries.
We've had a tough time getting this show done today, folks. So if you stick around for after hours, we'll tell you that. Anyway, thank you, Bob. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with another edition of Grilling at the Green. Until then, take care, go out, play some golf, and be kind. Everybody, welcome to After Hours here on Grilling at the Green. I'm JT, along with Bob Winskowicz from Squares Golf Shoe. Okay, now I'll tell the story. We actually did this show about, what, a week, 10 days ago?
Yep.
And then Genius Boy here behind the microphone said goodbye to Bob, set everything down, looked around. There was no file with the show in it. It was gone. I don't know. I'm not sure it ever existed. Bob reminded me of that before we started the other show today. He goes, see that red button down there? You push that button to record. And I deserve that and more. And so he's been very gracious to come back and join me again today to redo the show. But as somebody who does this stuff for a living, there's nothing more frustrating when you look down and there is no file. There's nothing there. It's in the ether somewhere. And so anyway, but Bob's been a really good sport on that. So
yeah, I'm the beneficiary. I mean, it's great to always talk to you, and I enjoy it. We have fun. So
yeah, we have fun. And I told him some out of school stories about one other time in particular that I did that was 27 years ago or whatever with well, I'll just say one of the lead characters in Star Trek, and I'll leave it at that. But that show never materialized either. So anyway, all right. We were talking in the first time we did this show, and there was one thing I wanted to come back and touch base on. I asked you something, what kept you going? What kept your desire and your burning? And one of the things you said was your faith. And then the other thing you said was that I believe the people that were working with you. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, when you start a company, you can do it many different ways, but the two more popular ways is you spend your own money for a period of time and then you get investors. And, I spent quite a bit of money launching this, and then eventually went out and got investors, and we started hiring people. And I noticed that people work long hours at night. I get emails and texts, and they're working on the weekends. And when you develop something, it becomes your baby. You appreciate people going the extra mile. So I get up every day. And I do what I do for the love of what I do, but for the people that I work with, because they count on me to run the company so they can enjoy their life and a living. And but we all try to make it as much fun as we can for everybody. But again, I'm very dependent on my faith, and I'm very dependent on the people that I work with to do their job and to think about this day in and day out and progress the company. So Yeah, those are the
Yeah.
two most
I,
important things when you get into business.
I think, I know that you have to have some self-belief, and that comes through your faith, your spiritual beliefs, whatever you want to call it. To me, you have to have good people around you, and I could never have done this over the last so many years without my wife being there. You know, she sometimes would shake her head and walk away, but she never turned around and said, "You got to quit that crap." She never said that to me. She's just like, "You'll work through it. You'll figure it out." She always had that faith in me. So,
I have that same type of wife, and we've been together for 33 years. And, I don't think I could have ever I don't think if I was in her role, I could put up with me and my work ethics. But I got to tell you what, I couldn't agree more, Jeff. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I could be doing this.
yeah, absolutely. Those times when I was out in the studio at 10, 11 at night, 4 in the morning, and she probably actually slept better with me out there, without me snoring or something. All right, let's get to some fun lightning round stuff, Bob. This is one you liked the last time. If we declared you supreme ruler of golf for one day, what would Bob decree as supreme ruler of golf?
I thought about that after you asked me, so I'm going to change my tune. I'm going to say no greens fees.
Oh, there you go. There you go. There you
I
go.
did say, I think the last time I said as many clubs in the bag as you want,
Right.
But I'll go with, I'm sure it'd be more popular with no greens fees.
No green fees. And I think we were talking about this too the last time, and we can kind of veer off here a little bit. I've seen some of the local clubs, and I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods in the Northeast there, but they've exponentially raised their greens fees rates the last couple of years. And as my good friend Steve always says, you're paying to walk on their grass. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know golf is growing in popularity and all that, but if anybody ever took an economics class, there's kind of that intersection, where supply and demand cross, and then one starts to fall off on one side or the other. So I'm not sure the golf industry, or at least local courses, are savvy enough to figure that out yet. I'm sure they are. I'm being sarcastic, but you're going to get to that maximum point very shortly, especially with the inflation rates and different things. I don't want to talk politics. It's just that those are a fact. Prices are going up all over the place, and I know labor costs are going up, but I don't think they're going up for a course that's getting, I don't know, what would you say, 500 rounds a day, Bob, or something like that, and they've raised it uh $10, $15, so that's 5,000 to 7,500 extra dollars a day, basically.
I think you're spot on. I think it was a supply and demand. When COVID hit, obviously it was, you know, a boost to the game of golf because it was one of the only things you could do in social distance. And so golf went through this tremendous growth phase over a 2-year period. And, rounds played and was up significantly. And, it became this thing where to get a tee time was often difficult. So, it became a supply and demand thing. I started increasing the prices. And the reason was because they could. And I don't see that as a good thing for this game. I'm all for capitalism and people,
Oh yeah.
but I think that is between spending 4 or 5 hours on a golf course, out of your daily life, getting away from the family or whatever it is, on a Saturday, Sunday, and then, buying the clubs at $600 a driver and $1,500 for a set of irons and all. It just, at some point, it's going to hurt the game. You're going to start driving people away. And it's one of my criticisms of the industry is that I think the price of a round of golf today is too expensive.
Well, I'm going to say something very cynical here, and it's in agreement with what you say. We always say grow the game. I'm not sure we do a great job of growing the game. We pay a lot of lip service to it, but we get a lot of kids in. But are we feeding the machine eventually with those kids, or are we really growing the game? I don't have
I,
that answer. That
I,
just popped in my head.
I don't either, but I think my inclination is the same as yours, which I don't think we are. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think to some degree it's surface treatment. It's are we vesting these kids in the game in the right way?
Right.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's do something fun here. If you got a chance to play a round of golf with one of your golfing heroes, now Arnie doesn't count on this because you probably already played with him a number of times. Okay. But if you got to play with one of your golfing heroes, who would it be?
one of my golfing heroes. So Arnold would have been the first one, but I did play with Arnold. I would have loved to play with Jack. I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting Jack and Barbara about a year and a half ago and spent a little time with them. And very, very engaging guy. It's interesting. Him and Arnold have this certain very unique quality, which is when you're talking to him, makes you feel like nobody else exists. They're not looking for people to be looking at them. He was real. So I would have loved to have been able to play around with Jack Nicklaus. That would have been a great thing for me.
Isn't
I
that
had the
cool?
pleasure. I had the pleasure of playing with John Daly. That was pretty interesting. But
That was probably fun.
yeah, it was. Yeah.
But isn't that true when you find somebody of that level of notoriety, but yet also the humanistic tendencies, and they look at you and they're listening to you, they're paying attention to what you say. I've worked in the entertainment business for a long time, and a lot of them, they get up and walk out of the studio, and 2 seconds later, they can't remember your name. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, if you see Jack at Augusta this week, he's going to say, "Hey, Bob, how are you?" You know.
I agree. And who else is like that too, to his credit, is John Daly. John, despite, his social life, he is he's got a charity called Heart of a Lion, and that's an under. He's got a big heart. He is just he too is like that. He makes you feel like you're the only one there, and you walk up and he notices, he's like, Bobby, how are you? How you doing? And he's just got that same kind of kindness and that Arnold and Jack have.
That's really a unique quality in people. Okay. Bob, if you could dine with a historical figure, who would it be and what would be on the menu? And I'll even excuse me, I'll even come cook for you if you need to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know it's going to be on the menu.
Okay.
It's going to be some form of barbecue.
Okay. We got
I
that handled.
couldn't. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just got your text to say grilling and barbecue and all that. So no, but a historical figure.
Could be anybody.
Um,
They don't have to be alive today. We
doesn't have. I would have. I don't. I would have loved to dine with Ronald Reagan.
yeah.
I would have loved to dine with him. He just seemed to be a fascinating guy, but I don't know why I deferred to presidents when you said that, but yeah, I think somebody like him, historical. I mean, I could go back and say, Jesus, but
Yeah.
you know,
The wine wasn't as good in those
yeah,
days. So,
that would be probably my ultimate. But I mean, I was
yeah.
trying to think, and
Yeah. Um, if we put Bob's skills to music, what would the music be?
um, I would hope it'd be something like Pink Floyd.
Dark Side of the Moon or
Yeah. Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. David Gilmour.
If you don't eat your meat, how can you have any pudding?
Right.
um, what's the toughest thing about starting? I mean, you started Squares with an idea, and you, like you said a few minutes ago, you put your own money in it. But a lot of people have good ideas. I go to some of the golf shows, the consumer shows here on the West Coast. I participate in the one in Portland, and I can participate in Seattle if I want to, but I just go sometimes. And you see a lot of new inventions in the golf world, and some of them have merit. Some of them are a little Ricky tick, as my dad used to say that, attach this thing to your left elbow and run it through your belt loop and down under your right foot and then put it to your right wrist and that'll help your swing. But there are some things, just like new versions of uh, a yardage scope or something
Yep.
like that. So what's the hardest thing to stay with it and keep fighting and keep making that step after step, or what is it from your perspective?
That's it. When you're in business, you always try to think about, what can go wrong. And it's like you always live your life thinking about what can go wrong. And you very rarely spend much time thinking about the good that you've accomplished or good things about it. You're
Yeah.
always, looking at it. And it's no surprise. And I jokingly told the story once about Noah's Ark. When Noah started building the ark, everybody was looking at him, go, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
You know? And everybody was like, look at this idiot over here. Look what he's trying to do. And then when it starts to rain, everybody's on it. But then you get inside and all the animals, you have to take care of them. They're all crapping on you, and that's the way it is you just got to take it from the outside that everything is, hey, it's negative, it's this, it's that, and you've got to actually kind of dismiss some aspects of reality. You've got to be very focused, and you've got to be able to adapt and respond. But it's, the challenge is that second guessing yourself constantly. Oh, why did I do this? Or
Right.
is this as good as I think it is? That's the thing that kind of, that cloud that follows you all the time.
Yeah. Did I push the record button or didn't I? You
So does
have
that
a
mean I'll see you next Friday?
Yeah, next Friday. It's a date from now on, man. You travel a lot. You traveled a lot when you worked with Mr. Palmer. You've traveled a lot in your life. You're traveling with Squares. You're off to Augusta in a couple of days. Tell us the best and the worst parts of travel. I know Bob, I've got over 2 million miles in the air, and I can tell you some funny stuff and I can tell you some not so funny stuff. But um, when I started traveling a lot, it was kind of fun. It was exciting. We didn't have to go through security. You could talk to the stewardess, and like you said, you could talk to the lady at the gate or the guy, and they could move you up or whatever most of the time. It's a little more difficult now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I used to love it. I would enjoy, traveling around and trying to restaurants and hotels, and you get elevated in the hotels and you feel like a king because you spend so many nights, and you get upgraded on first class because you get so many miles. And at some point you get to the point you say, you know what, I just miss being home. I want to be home with my wife and my dog. And I don't want to. I'm sitting at the airport praying that flight leaves to go back home,
Oh,
and it gets delayed. And, all you want to do is get back home, and you're looking at it going from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And then you're praying it goes.
right.
But it's, that goes with the job, but that's the worst part about it. Right now, and I'm going to Augusta next week, and I've been blessed. I work for companies that we went to Augusta, and I've been there probably 7 or 8 times. This time I'm going down to meet some people, and Sir Nick asked me if I wanted a ticket to get down, and so it's one of these things that I'm going to enjoy myself. But honestly, I think I would rather be home, with the dog and the wife.
You want me to edit that part out about Augusta and then rather be home? You want us to take that out?
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, some people are going to look at that and say, oh, gee, but no, it's always a pleasure to be there. And if everybody should put it in their bucket list.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Couple fun questions here. Um, what's one thing you miss about your 20s? I know you're only 31, so you got married when
Yeah.
you were 6 months old. So
I miss that carefree, that carefree mindset with, with no recourse and, that reckless abandon that, instead of waking up thinking about your responsibilities every single day. So, I miss that.
Yeah. I think when I was in college, those were the best 4 years of my life. I mean, and I mean, as far as fun, I took my school seriously, but I had such a good time. Um, and
Same
just
here.
like just like you were saying, it's
Yeah,
just
when I graduated college, I kept for the next 2 months tried to figure out how I could go back.
yeah.
And the good news is they didn't want me back. And the other news was that I couldn't afford to go back. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Here's one that I didn't ask you last time, Bob. Boxers or briefs?
uh, boxer briefs,
There you go.
boxers. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I should probably add that to that question.
yeah, yeah.
There. What would your last meal be on death row?
My last meal on death row, there's no question about that. There's a restaurant we go to and they have this, it's called this veal chop veldestano. And it's this veal chop with prosciutto in it and fontina cheese, and it is delicious. So that would have to be I'd have to say that's number one.
Yeah, you could eat it really slow, maybe get an extra day out of the deal or something, like that. Um, here's your chance. What would Bob Winskowicz's message to the world be?
I just see a lot of um, these senseless crimes out there, people walking down the street, hitting somebody and people get stabbed. I think this country has veered off path relative to the family-centric family, and faith. And I think the family and faith keeps people focused on what's the right thing to do and being good to people and being kind to people. That's my criticism of today in the world is, all this fighting and, it's one thing to have an opinion and to be a Democrat or Republican, but to not be able to find common ground in this world with people is just it's incredible. I just don't understand.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way there. One more time, Bob, where can people find Squares?
At squares.com, and that's SQAIRZ.com. That's SQAIRZ.com. And that's where they can find us.
Excellent. Bob Winskowicz, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for putting up with me another time here in a 10-day stretch. And
Hey, it's a
geez,
pleasure. It really is. And I can't thank you enough for what you do. And I said this to you last time because what you do allows us to have a platform to tell our story. So thank you for what you do.
oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the Masters, everybody, and go out there, play some golf, be kind, and take care. We'll see you later. Okay, now very carefully turn off the record.